Hi students, in this video we're going to look at how to calculate the sum of the terms of a geometric sequence. Alright, so after watching this video you should be able to recall the formula for the sum of the first n terms of a geometric sequence and then use that formula to calculate the sum of the first 10 terms of a geometric. Alright, the big things you'll have to remember from previous lessons is the definition of a geometric sequence, where consecutive terms have the same common ratio when they're divided. You'll need to remember how to find the first term and the common ratio of a geometric sequence, and also the general form of our geometric sequence, Tn equals Tnr to the power of n minus 1. Alright, so what we're going to do first is we're going to establish the rule for the sum of the first n terms of a geometric sequence. So we're going to say let Sn be the sum of the first n terms of a geometric sequence. And what we'll do is we'll then express that using our general form. So term 2 is term 1 times r, term 3 is term 1 times r squared, and so on all the way through to Tn equals term 1 times r to the n minus 1. That's all just straight from our general formula. And so our sum is the sum of all of those terms. Now, what I'm going to do next is, it doesn't really make much sense just looking at it, but once you see what happens, it makes sense because of what it does and what you see it makes sense at the end when you actually get a solution. So we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by r. So we'll have Rsn on the left side. Then on the right, we're going to have T1 times r to get T1r, T1r times r again to get T1r squared, and all the way along, all the way through our sequence, so that our power of r is just going up by 1. So I did have, at this back term, we did have T1 times r to the power of n minus 1. Timesing by r again means I'm adding 1 to that power of r, minus 1 plus 1 cancels out. So my last term is T1 r to the n. Alright, now what we're going to do is subtract these two equations. So if we do equation 2, subtract equation 1, something really interesting happens. So what we're going to see is, right, I've got a T1r there and a T1r there. So if I subtract them, those terms will cancel. And so will those two if I subtract them. And those two. And everything in between, T1r n minus 1, T1r n minus 1, everything is going to cancel except for T1r to the n and T1. So on my left-hand side, when I subtract those equations, I'll get Rsn minus Sn, that's there, and then T1r to the n minus T1. Rearranging that, I can factorize both those terms. Let's get rid of that so we can see it. So factorize both sides, and then rearranging for Sn by dividing by r minus 1, there's my formula for the sum of the first n terms of a geometric sequence. Term 1 multiplied by r to the n minus 1 divided by r minus 1. Alright, let's do an example. So we've got an arithmetic sequence here. We've got T1, we've got T6. We need to find the sum of the first 6 terms. Now, looking at the information I've been given, it's pretty clear to see I am missing an r value. So I don't know what that is yet, and I'll need that before I try and work out S6. Alright, so using my general formula, I can say that T6 is going to equal T1 times r to the 5. Right, so n minus 1, so that'll be 6 minus 1, which is 5. And then I can substitute terms in. So I've got 81 on 8 equals negative 1 on 24 times r5. So rearranging that, by dividing both sides by negative 1 over 24, you end up with negative 243 equals R5. And then R is going to be the fifth root of negative 243. Using our calculators, that equals negative 3. So now I've got my R value. I can now work out my sum of the first 6 terms. So sum of the first 6 terms will be T1 times R to the 6 minus 1 over R minus 1. Term 1 is negative 1 on 24 times R is negative 3 to the 6. Please do not forget to put those negative values in brackets. And then divided by negative 3 minus 1. All substituted in, you end up with 91 over 12 as your answer there. Semi-complex problem, but just getting the values, substituting them in, and then you can work out the sum pretty easily. Alright, so after watching this video, you should be able to recall the formula for the sum of the first n terms of a geometric sequence, and also use that same formula to carry out a calculation yourself.